It's about that time. It's been roughly 2 or so years since I've done a personal rig upgrade, and like I said, it's time to do it again. Previous setup was a Z590A gaming Wi-Fi by Strix, as well as a Core i9 10850K. Now we're moving on to the same board, essentially, but 2 generations newer. So it's a Z790A gaming Wi-Fi. And we're going with a Core i9 13900KS. Now, this was almost a top tier CPU at the time, but the 10900K was pretty much like the best gaming CPU from Intel at the time. 10850, not quite top of the range, but it was still good enough. This is a 10 core, 20 thread CPU, whereas this is a 24 core CPU, I believe. It's got 8 performance cores and it's got 16 efficiency cores. So, should be a pretty good step up in terms of performance. This can actually boost to 6 gigahertz on its own, where that, not at all. So I should see a pretty good jump in CPU heavy tasks for gaming anyways. This is about a 20% bottleneck for my 3090 Ti, whereas in the same program, it says this gives me about 44% headroom over the 3090 Ti. Now, I will eventually get a 4090 Ti when that does come out, but until then, I'll be sticking with my 3090 Ti, which works just fine. So, I'm going to go ahead, get these the packaging. Going to go upstairs. We're going to take the setup we currently have. We're going to run a bunch of benchmarks, do a bunch of like synthetics, as well as like I play Valheim with my cousin a lot, and he built this ridiculous city, and it actually chugs down my current setup. And I would imagine because it's got a ton going on, all these buildings are constantly trying to tear themselves apart, and it's so much CPU processing happening. I'm really curious to see if that alleviates any of it switching to this with its 16 efficiency cores and 8 performance cores. So we'll see how that turns out. But other than that, we're going to do a lot of synthetic benchmarks and just really see the real world difference between a 10850K and a 13900KS. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so here's the current setup. Again, running a 10850K and a 3090 Ti. We're going to go ahead and run a CPU profile benchmark just to see what this ends up with. Currently, I have it clocked to 4.8 gigahertz, 32 gigs of DDR4 at 3200 megahertz. Here's the GPU, blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and see how it goes. All right, here's the results for the 10850K. The frequency stayed right around 4800 the whole time, so 4.8 gigahertz. Down here, we got detailed score, so max threads. Frame timing was 39.5, 16 was 42.8, 8 threads was 60 milliseconds, 4 threads was 110.6, 2 threads was 216.8, and 1 thread was 422.8. Temperature wise, I think peak was about 66 degrees throughout all of that. And again, frequency stayed steady right around 4800, around 4.8 gigahertz. So I'm looking to see if the frame times decrease with the 13900K or KS, and see what the temperatures do as well, because the cooling is going to be exactly the same. So I have a full custom loop, 360 in the top, 360 in the bottom. It shares the loop with the 3090 Ti. However, that's not going to be doing anything for that test. So, yeah, the block or the CPU block is going to be exactly the same as well. So that'll be interesting to see how much hotter it runs, if at all, and what happens with the frame times. So we'll switch back to this right now. All right, so I just got finished running the CPU profile benchmark, and I have the editing window here open showing the original results for the 10850K and the results for the 13900KS. Now, it's roughly a little under twice as powerful in terms of the results here. So max threads got us 8,860 there. And over here on the 13900KS, we got nearly 16,000. 16 threads was 8,100. 16 threads was 11,675. 8 threads, 5,800. 8 threads, 8,700. 4 threads, 31, 4780, 1600 for 2 threads, 2400 for 2 threads here, 800 for 1 thread, and 1200 for 1 thread here. The interesting thing is, with the 10850K, it showed that it was running at 4.8 gigahertz on the graph here. With the 13900KS, it's only showing base clock of 3.2 gigahertz, which really shouldn't be the case. Let me just see here. Because I know it boosts up to 6 gigahertz, and even just right now, it's just sitting around 5.5, 5.7, what have you. But the base speed's 3.2, and that's all that this program is reading. Anything with 3D Mark, it doesn't show the actual frequency of the CPU, which I find interesting. Maybe it's time for a BIOS update on the board or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would fix that. But anyways, these are the results of that. The frame timings we'll look at. So average there under max thread is 21.9. 16 thread is 30. 8 threads is 40. 4 threads is 73. 2 threads is 149. And 1 thread is 289 milliseconds. Now, if we scroll through here, we have frame times of 40 for 8 max threads compared to 22 roughly. It's 21.9. 16 threads is 42.8. Here it's 30. 8 threads is 60 milliseconds there. Here it's 40. 4 threads is 110. Here it's 73. 2 threads is 216.8. Here it's 145. And 1 thread is 422.8. And here it's 289. So a pretty significant jump in frame timing as well. All in all, so far, this CPU is a tremendous upgrade over my old 10850K. And as soon as we get into the gaming benchmarks, like with Valheim, you will see a massive difference. It's really impressive. All right, here's the results for Firestrike with the 10850K 3090 Ti. So here's my physics score, GPU score, and combined. So we'll see what it does with the 13900KS. All right, so here's what we got with 3D Mark Firestrike. This is with the 13900KS. About 8,000 more overall score. Graphics score was a little bit less. I scored 53,200 on the old setup. I'm not sure what would be causing the difference in that. It's the same overclock on both runs. So that's something interesting to note. But physics went from 28.4 to almost 53, which is a big jump. And same with combined, 9,400 to 15.1. So pretty good jump in synthetic benchmarks. Again, only showing 3,200 megahertz instead of 6,000, which is what it boosts to. Not sure why it's still showing it that way, but it is what it is. Now we'll take a look at TimeSpy. All right, and here's the results for TimeSpy. Again, 10850K, 3090 Ti. It's my graphics score, my CPU score. Let's see what the temperatures are at. Again, it's like pegged to 4.8 gigahertz the whole time. GPU is at 2145. Memory was 1375, but dual channel. Weird. That should be higher. Whatever. Let's check out the temperatures of the CPU. So, majority of the time, GPU is at 57 peak. 60 peak right there. CPU, under the CPU test, hit about 72 at its hottest. So we'll see what the 13900KS does. Not a huge increase, though. We did see a bit of an increase on the graphics score, but not by much. CPU score is quite a bit higher. Not a ton, though. And overall, picked up 2,300 points almost. No. Yeah, about that. Again, 3.2 gigahertz, even though, if we look over here, right there, Two P cores went to 6,000. All the other performance cores were at 5,600, and all the efficiency cores were at 4,300. So again, another bug that I'm not quite sure how to repair. All right, moving on. All right, well, I don't have access to the save file that has the giant city they built. I'm about 130 days behind, but this is another thing that he's built. We're sitting around the 40s, 30s. Lots going on. In the 30s. Again, like, there's so much CPU usage going on with this. So it'll be interesting to see what the difference is once we put the 13900 KS in. So I'm just doing a quick walk up to the main grade hall. Now we're up in the 60s. So I'll do that same walk on the 13900 KS, see what it does. All right, so here we are again, same place, roughly same time of day with the 13900 KS installed. Now everything else is exactly the same. The only difference is the new CPU, and it's running at stock clock. So straight out of the box, it is what it is. Here we're sitting at around 60, 57 to 60. We're gonna go do the same sort of walk. Going up the steps. The 60s, the last time I believe we were at the 40s and 30s. So we're gonna go ahead and head up here. Again. Essentially double the FPS. Like now we're in the 70s. We'll go into the grade hall here, where we were before. Up in the 80s. So we'll walk through here. Again, like I didn't overclock the GPU, didn't overclock the CPU. You know, 107. So that's how it's running now, 108. And again, I think we got up to like the 60s and 70s in this area. I'll have to double check the video, but basically double the performance in a CPU intensive game like Valheim. So that is exactly what I was looking for, because these are the games that I like. So it was actually quite an upgrade. I'm super, super happy with the 13900 KS. Well worth the upgrade. And the best part is the 10900K or 10850K, as well as my motherboard and RAM, are going into my girlfriend's rig. So that will no longer be an i5 8600K. It'll be the 10850K with a 3080, essentially my old setup. So very happy with the results. Well worth the upgrade if these are the types of games that you play, anything CPU heavy. Yeah, next we'll do, what's it called? Cyberpunk. We'll see how that has either improved or stayed the same. I'm not expecting much. This was the game I was expecting big improvements on, as well as synthetic benchmarks, and definitely not disappointed. All right, here we are in Cyberpunk. Going to show you the settings. Everything's on ultra. DLSS is at auto. Ray tracing, everything psycho. We're running 3440 by 1440. Let's run the benchmark. All right, so average was 71.5, min was 55.3, max was 85.9. Took 64 seconds to complete the run with 4,594 frames. All right, now here we are with the 13900 KS. Again, same settings. Everything is as high as possible. And the resolution is 3440 by 1440. So let's go ahead and run the benchmark and see the difference, if any. All right. So average FPS jumped by about 8. Min 65.8, max almost 100. Say roughly the same time to complete the test. This is kind of what I was expecting. With graphically intensive games like Cyberpunk, the CPU doesn't play nearly as much of a role as it does in games like Valheim or Minecraft or things like that. So, in terms of upgrading, if this is the types of games you play, you're not going to see a huge increase. I mean, it's still a good increase. That's what we went from 71 to almost 80. It's what, like 8%? It's pretty decent considering all we did was just swap the CPUs. It's the same RAM, same video card, and it's all stock settings on the 13900 KS there. But like I said, if these are the types of games you play, it's probably not worth the $1,000. But because I play games like Valheim and Minecraft and like a lot of CPU intensive games. I mean, I play these games too, but like I really enjoy those creative open world uh, sandbox building games, stuff that's really CPU intensive. This has been an amazing upgrade for things like that, as well as productivity, which I don't do a lot of anymore, but it's there for people that do need it. So all in all, I am super happy with this upgrade, and the best part is that I get to upgrade my girlfriend's computer as well with my old setup, and she'll get to see a big jump in performance there too. So sort of worked down, or sorry, worked up. Ugh. Sort of worked out. Uh, Upgrade for her, upgrade for me. Yeah, I'm super happy. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.